My presentation topic is, are the policies positively charged to build the economy? Well, while I was writing this phrase, are the policies positively charged? We are all very much aware that presently we are well acquainted with this word positive. Corona positive, COVID-19 positive. So I have tried to use this word in a humor, that are the policies positively charged? If you look into the Indian economy, I'll just present it in 4 steps. Indian economy, its distinct features, policies that shaped India 1947 to 2020, India's great slowdown, why this sudden downturn, and at last, I will just use certain tax policies, whether they are positively contributing towards economic development. I am a practicing chartered accountant and I am associated with the institute. I have been in several projects on GST and other taxation matters. I would just give only outlines instead of sharing the statistics. We have this Indian economy. From its distinct taxation features, it's a federal structure. It has got power to tax commodities or people's income by both the center and the state, and it has a progressive rate of taxation. I'm just putting this very loud and clear. It is a federal structure. That means the center and the state has to sync together to implement a policy and get it executed so that it reaches the last mile, it reaches the last beneficiary in the way it was executed or planned. There is a difference between what is planned, what the policy is framed, and what is getting executed at the ground level. So this is a very big issue. Then again, the power to tax rests with both the state and the center. We have seen certain digressing policies, which I will put you forth over here. We also know the progressive rate of taxation. Why am I using this as a feature? Because since there is a progressive rate of taxation, we have learnt in as a student of commerce and in economic subject, that progressive rate of taxation has also contributed massively, I repeat, also contributed massively towards creating a polarization, which led to parallel economy and black money. So when we are talking about the taxation structure, when I say progressive rate of taxation, we see both that in the direct tax as well as indirect tax. Well, of course, in indirect tax, it is in a different way, but let me share. Policies that shaped India. If you look into on your left screen top, it's a very familiar picture that a farmer is throwing away or getting the fruits or the crops grounded, buried on the soil. A very simple thing. It's a picture. No, it is not a picture. This farmer had a fear of losing revenue. I repeat, losing revenue, losing earning. The farmer thought that the cost of the crops are much more than the revenue or the selling price. So it is better to suffer the loss entirely. While I'm talking about the MSP, minimum selling price, which recently the government has made certain announcements for increasing it by 35 to 80% or 35 to 70%, as the case might be. We need to see the blueprints at details. What else? What they could have done? Instead of throwing them, they could have kept them in the infrastructure, the cold storage. Where are those facilities? The facilities are not proper. You would appreciate that in this Finance Act of 2020, government had taken several measures for development or for promoting infrastructure, cold storage and etc., so that these crops are not getting destroyed. But we have seen that COVID has hit us very hard. The lockdown is having a wider impact on the economy. So when I have drafted this schedule over here, I have defined my policies or divided my policies into three parts: pre-COVID and post-COVID, because this is a situation which we all living here have not faced. The entire world had not faced. It is not that only one country is facing this problem, so other countries will come for the rescue. Pre-COVID, 1947 to 1991, when the new industrial policy was taken, 1991 to 2017, yes, I am trying to take you to the date of the implementation of goods and services tax and the changes in the direct taxes. Then from 2017 to 2019 and onwards, and then I have shown it as a post-COVID-19 issue. These are the policies which we can divide. I have more papers on it, but I will not, this is not a time to share those. But there are so many policies which are taken in the country which are digressing in nature. One is stopping the other instead of being a facilitator. Taxation policies and their comparative analysis. What are the comparative tax structures across the world? Do we have a geographical comparison? Where they properly utilized for implementing or for developing a tax policy in the country? This is a very, very important issue which I will just touch base. But I would like to get your kind attention over here. In the terms of indirect taxes, if you look into, obviously I'll be sharing this slide. These are continent-wise, where the number of taxes paid by businessmen, number of taxes, not the quantum of taxes. In Asia, this is done on 45 countries, where the number of taxes, different types of taxes, the highest is 46 types of taxes in Nepal, and the lowest is 3 in Bahrain, average is 17. In this way, if you look into, in this entire table, you find in South America, out of 12 countries, Venezuela accounted for 99 different types of taxes paid by a businessman, while it is only 7 in Chile. Let us look into your right-hand side and left-hand side corner on the top. India, during the period of 2013 to 19, there were 28 taxes highest and minimum 11 taxes lowest, with the maximum was 41 taxes in 2013, while the world has an average of 23 taxes. I am trying to talk from the taxation angle. We are looking the biggest, we are facing the biggest challenge of the economy, or the entire world is facing the challenge. I'll put you certain to the situation which we were facing earlier. We had different types of taxes other than the direct tax. We had indirect taxes which were based on manufacture, based on service, based on sales, based on import and export, and so on and so forth. And these were, if you look into the last bottom, they're all different based, origin based tax, destination based tax, right? And these were causing problem for the Indian economy. India has decided to move from multi-incidence taxation to single tax incidence. Friends, this is the biggest point. India has moved from multi-incidence indirect taxation to a single tax incidence. India had a program made Make in India project, which we are talking now, Atmanirbhar project, Atmanirbhar Bharat. It had a Make in India project which did not see the light of the day. I am saying it because I made a study. It is my personal views. I would like to suggest certain facts, certain issues. Like we have seen that center had declared a 20 lakh crore package to boost the economy. And my previous speaker had very rightly mentioned 85% was of that was for liquidity only. The supply side is proposed to be boosted without any corresponding measure to increase the demand. I am not going into the economic angle, but I have to touch base certain things. There were issues being mentioned that whether printing of currency notes is the only option left to the government of India or many other countries in the world. Whether if the currency notes are printed and given to people, whether it will be inflationary, can the economy be confident to stopping that particular inflationary situation if currency notes are printed and then given back? I will just try to touch base certain aspects. Sorry. On the goods and services tax, I will take you from the tax rates to the impact. See, on the goods and services tax, there is iron and steel products which are charged at 18%. There is cement which is charged at 28%, which are very high. I am trying to suggest a demand for the real estate sector or the construction sector and trying to make a link with the banking sector covering the GST and the Income Tax Act. If the tax rates on these iron and steel products are reduced, I repeat, the tax rates on iron and steel products are reduced from 18% to 12% or even lower at 5%. If the tax rates on cement is reduced from 28% to 12%, then this will lead to a cost reduction of the real estates. If there is a cost reduction in the real estate, it will definitely boost up demand. And increase in demand, which is most required for the real estate sector or the construction industry, as everybody says, post demonetization, these sectors has got the biggest hit. Just a policy to take a lower rate of tax on iron and steel products and cement would majorly decrease the cost of these real estate sectors, giving them benefits to take the input tax credit of GST. In return, what will happen? The bank will be able to fund them. There will be more credit creation. Banks will have a business. The insurance sector will have a co-lateral business along with it. It will be beneficial for the economy, for the common people like us. There will be demand for housing loan. Banks would be facilitated. Increase in insurance policies, increase in collection from stamp duty. There would be widening of the tax base and estimated government increase in collection in the long run. But what I also propose that there should be a corresponding increase in the 80C ceiling. I repeat, it should be only 80C should have only a provision for house building loan principal amount instead of getting it under 1,50,000 slab in total. It should also increase the interest on house building loan to 3 lakhs from its existing 2 lakhs. These are my proposition. A GST rate deduction would, in the iron and steel products and cement, would boost up the real estate, the construction sector, collaterally increase the banking sector, the insurance sector. The collections will increase differently, but you have to give the benefit to the SSE and the people who are trying to pay taxes. Increase the amount of house building loan principal amount as a separate provision, and the interest on the loan should also be increased so that the income from house property calculation, they get a better benefit. On the suggestion on the rate of GST on petroleum products, friends, we all know that GST does not include petroleum products, but the policy is that GST's rate of petroleum products is not notified. What will be the harm in getting the petroleum products into GST now? If you look into my second column, there would be a cost reduction of 30 to 35% if GST is brought and if petroleum products are brought under GST. And if the cost of the petroleum, that means the operating cost, comes down, then this will also increase the demand for automobiles, one. Number two, the cost of logistics would come down. The cost of logistics, if it comes down, then it will reduce the cost of supplies, cost of goods, cost of services, everything will come down. It is going to change the entire scenario. The government has to decide that GST should be now considering the petroleum product, these 5 petroleum products: petrol, diesel, petroleum crude, aviation fuel, and natural gas. I am not talking about alcoholic liquor for human consumption. We have a meeting of GST Council on 12th. We do not know. These things are very, very much required. We had suggestions for agriculture and the farmers. Well, the center had made certain proposition on agricultural sectors, but I presume that we have to have a database proper. Who is earning how much? MSP, giving an MSP, giving a DBT, my erstwhile speaker was giving a very statistical, very authentic figure that around 37% had got the DBT transfers. True, we have seen the problem faced by all and everybody. My humble request is to get these agricultural people earning agricultural income under the Income Tax Act, but not to levy any income tax on them. This is just to consider how much they are earning or how much earning they are declaring right now. This will help the government. This will help the government or even the central government or the state governments to take appropriate measures. We are talking about investments in agricultural universities, investments in solar power based supply irrigation system by raising funds to agro bonds. These are my suggestions for improving the demand side. On the education, today we are sitting on this particular platform, e-platform. We have seen the schools are into lockdown. We do not know, the schools and colleges are in lockdown. We do not know when will they open and in what condition will they open. There is a big problem elsewhere. We have been utilizing e-technology or the digital platform over the years, but this COVID lockdown had opened up a separate area. We have seen that people are also saying that truly digital platform is not the only method to be adopted. True, chalk and talk method, face-to-face learning, they cannot be done away with. But yes, we need to create an environment for improving the educational physical infrastructure. have mentioned about GST and the rate issues and etc. Now, one more very important thing. This is my proposition, so I have left all the other three portions as blank. GST policy cannot have any exempted goods or exempted services. I repeat, a good GST policy cannot have exempted goods or exempted services. What happens? If your final product is exempted, then your inputs are consisting of GST, which is considering to be a part of the cost. So when I talk about the taxation policies which are affecting our Indian economy, let me also mention about the EMI moratorium issue, which I have not intentionally put in over here in the slide. The government had made deferment of this EMI. Now there is a fight going on between the RBI and the Supreme Court, wherein RBI says that 2 lakh crores will be lost for the banks if interest is waived off. What did they do? They had done a deferment. But if interest is waived off, the RBI governor says there will be a loss of 2 lakh crores. Let that be. Recently, RBI had done a written off for about 15-20 people amounting to 68,000 crores. The country did not get benefit out of it. If 2 lakh crores is getting waived off because of interest waiver during this moratorium period, this lockdown period of 3 + 3, 6 months, let that also be a part of the economic package. At least that will give us some more saving in the hand of the people who have taken loans and who are willing to bring back the economy. I rest my discussion over here. I think I have crossed my time. If you have any issues, if you have any questions, I can take up those questions. This is where we stand, that we need to work very thoroughly. We need to look into taking policies which are effective for getting a cyclical change of the economy. Yesterday, Atlas bicycle company got closed down in Saharanpur in UP, getting a loss of 700 people unemployed. Just imagine, 700 people unemployed. There are many big organizations which have deferred promotion, which have deferred payment of salaries, which are going for a huge one-time suspension or layoff of their employees. It's time for all of us to stand together. And in this tough times, I think we will be able to come out and pull up the best. The erudites are over here, the researchers are over here. Let us frame policies, let us open up our minds, and let us help the government, the state government and the central governments in our own way and contribute for the nation building. Thank you very much.